So for those of you who don't know, Julie's Bicycle has been active in the UK, but also working internationally for the last 12 years. And our goal has evolved over this time, but essentially it's been to support the arts and cultural community to respond to climate change, not only in our capacity to imagine alternative futures and to make work that engages and moves people to engage with this issue, but to tangibly reduce our carbon impacts and to provide the tools and resources, the training and leadership development, the community building amongst the networks that exist within our sector, and to design new networks to build a movement of cultural change makers, and the advocacy that's necessary to bring our policymakers on board, to bring our suppliers on board, the supply chain of the creative industries, and to really kind of enact a systemic change by acting our way into a new way of being. And since the Paris Agreement came into force in 2015, our aim has evolved to exponentially grow environmental skills and to accelerate global action across the cultural sector to meet the 1.5 degrees aim. It's always been very important to us for us to align with and to meaningfully engage with science-based targets because they really set the reality of where we're headed and what our potential is. And this is just a map of 7 trends that we've seen emerge in the way that the arts and cultural sector is responding to the climate crisis and really providing leadership. I don't have time to talk through every single one of them, but I'm sure we already have done and we will continue to unpack these. The first is obviously the artwork and the way that artists not only make work but also facilitate and create community in the way that they do that. The second is activism or artivism, the role of creativity in public statements, political action and resistance. Organizational leadership, as we've heard today, organizations tangibly making the transition, the radical transformation to being sustainable in the long term. Design and innovation, our capacity to kind of facilitate design and innovation processes in different ways. Collaboration, so the arts and culture is a place where different stakeholders can collaborate in ways that might liberate their imaginations compared to the usual places where they might work and work together. Pathfinding, so pathfinding organizations like Julie's Bicycle, like Climate Museum, like Climate Kick, like We Are Museums, like Happy Museum, who have been very active on Twitter, telling us about the way that their museums have been engaging as civic leaders with the climate crisis and policy changing. So acknowledging the role of policymakers in the UK, like Arts Council England, that has introduced environmental reporting requirements that's really created a sea change in the sector's engagement with climate and climate action. So we have a toolkit. Again, I don't have time really to talk through the whole thing, but this is one of the examples of how we've engaged specifically with the museum sector. So we put this together with a range of different partners, which included the Museums Association, Museums and Galleries Scotland, representatives of museum sector in Wales, really kind of looking at what is it that can help provide a framework within which we can radically reimagine our organizations and tangibly reduce emissions. And the framework basically breaks down action in 12 different areas across a museum's operations and activities and provides a bit of a health check from making initial progress to really leading the way in best practice. It's a great framework to check in with not only the actions that you can be taking and what level of kind of expertise that they represent in the organization, but also to check in with the different frameworks that exist for us to report to, whether it's the Paris Agreement or the Sustainable Development Goals, and to find one that really feels meaningful to the work of a particular organization. We've also created carbon calculator tools that helps organizations calculate their emissions in a meaningful way to their activities. And we have this process of like iteratively learning and developing our way through change, which involves understanding our impacts, acting and empowering people to take action with us, evaluating our progress, and crucially celebrating and communicating. And in the last 6 seconds, my provocation, basically, if I would allow myself just maybe 30 seconds, is that we have to demonstrate that we are the change, as well as being facilitators of and commissioners of imaginative and artistic ways to engage with the public. We really do have to act our way into a new way of thinking. So what does that look like? And I really think that we like to talk about urgent and radical change, but we also need to acknowledge that real transformation takes long-term commitment, consistency, and emotional intelligence. So we're in this kind of process of moving between business as usual and the viable future. And I think one provocation I'd also like to offer is that we're in the messy middle. It feels scary. Change is really hard. The Kubler-Ross change curve, I'm sure you know, but it's all of the range of emotions that people go through when you ask them to make even a small change in their lives. This is the landscape that we're operating in. And thankfully, science and kind of psychological mapping has also given us ways that we can specifically respond and engage with people when they're at different stages of that emotional process. So I just wanted to bring emotions into the room, as well as thinking about the kind of tangible ways of transition or transformation and not just change. Thank you.